I think yeah, you can actually it's the Robert Sobukwe clause. Robert Sobukwe clause, the founder of the BAC. We have a person here who is almost forgotten. The topic about Robert Sobukwe really for me is about understanding and intellect, where he actually was very much representative of a high intellectual capacity, in the sense that Robert Sobukwe was not really a legal personality. Um, he, but he was more of an activist, you know. Like if we have to contextualize everything, we have to understand that in those times you couldn't just be an activist and yet you are black. You had to um, affiliate with a more recognized personality, or persona, like for instance a political figure. So to be an activist in those times was actually something that was not really well understood. So if you understand Robert Sobukwe in that sense, that if you, I mean, one of his famous quotes is the fact that he supports and encourages humanity. Where he says that there is no human race. Also, rather, there is no race but one. I don't know. There's no other human race. There is only one race, but the human race. Sorry. So, looking at that, basically, you look at a person that was not really defined by racism. Was not defined by ideologies created to oppress his own individuality. So if you look at the military wing of the party that he started, it's actually named Boko, which actually means stand on your own. You know. So if we know about, for instance, Steve Biko, and one of his famous quotes that black men you're on your own. That is something that the Pan Africanist Congress was well, it understood it. It understood what it meant at the time and who was Robert Sobukwe who actually came up with that type of ideology. But what we have to also be aware of is the fact that Robert Sobukwe was part of a global world. He was part of a global ideology about Pan-Africanism. So you find that your Kwame Nkrumahs were talking the same thing. You'd find that your Fanons were talking the same thing. Your Malcolm X's were talking the same thing. Your Martin Luther Kings were talking the same thing. About how we should be humans. And humanity basically is individualism because if you understand individualism, it is the very thing that actually showcases our real humanity. Because when you're an individual, it means you really were born by yourself on earth, and therefore you deserve to be accepted as a human being who's doing things for himself or herself. So now, when you're part of a society, of a community, then it's important that you are able to um, be who you are. So this is what oppression was doing. It was taking away that individualism. You couldn't just be a human being, you had to be black. You had to come from a township, you had to come from a disadvantaged background. That was oppression, that is oppression. So Robert Sobukwe was actually saying that he is not right, and he was not the only one, obviously. But we're looking at him right now. We're talking about Robert Sobukwe and the Robert Sobukwe clause. So when we're looking at him, we're not looking at him, especially for this conversation or for this talk, we're not looking at him as a political figure, but we're looking at him as an intellect, a public intellect. I mean, Robert Sobukwe, the reason he got the Robert Sobukwe clause, it's not because he was a strong political figure, but rather it's because he was a strong public intellect. He was not as I said before, a legal personality, as you would find, for instance, with your Tambos, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, those, your Walter Sisulus, those were lawyers, they were advocates, they were legal personalities, they were legal practitioners. But they never got a clause. And I have to understand, or I have to rather elaborate my point as this, that to get a clause, a Robert Sobukwe clause, it's because Robert Sobukwe went beyond what everyone else believes, that there is no one above the law. The reason there was a clause specially made for him is because the law could not hold him anymore. Not because he was a gangster or anything, but because he was an intellect. He understood the law, and basically he just showcased that the law is not for the oppression of humanity. You know, so if you use the law to oppress the people, then we don't have a law. So that's why he was created a special clause for him, because the law could not hold him. So these are the things that we have to understand, that he was an activist in the sense that he was able to say that I don't really need to be an advocate to understand my rights. I know who I am. I know what I deserve as humanity. You know, so you'd find that now Robert Sobukwe, before he died, he was focused on his law studies, because he was studying law now. And what he had discovered was the fact that people don't know anything about the law, and those who do practice the law actually compromise a lot of truths and realities about what the law is for or is meant for, because, like I said, very few political figures actually had a special legal clause created for them. You know, I mean, he was incarcerated with the rest of them in Robben Island, but he was in isolation. Because obviously everyone knows he was an intellect, and he would be able to make, um, a lot of people to see the realities of their situation as it really is, not idealistically, but in reality. So people would actually listen to him, and people would become wiser when they listen to him. So that was very detrimental for an oppressive regime. So that's why he had to be isolated. So if we have to look at these kind of things and look at this kind of persona, then we have to understand it was not really about political affiliation. It was not really about the BAC, but it really was about focusing on a people being free. Because we have to understand this, that as much as it said that black men, you're on your own or be on your own, we have a continent, and the continent is inhabited by people of this continent. So there are lots of people that come from outside that obviously take advantage of the divide that is apparent within, the African continent. So when you talk about a pan-Africanist ideology, you actually talk about African humanity. By African humanity, I simply mean that we are humans and we happen to be from Africa. And that's how we're treated everywhere in the world. knowing that we are from Africa. If you look at Europe, if you look at America, they have a very elaborate strategy of how they should be superpowers as they as superpowers. So I think it's very important that we are not really are naive about the reality of the world and understand ourselves and our position as Africans. You know, it's no joke. It's no fairy tale. It's not mythology that Africans have been oppressed, have been colonized, and all of those kind of things. So during the time of these projects, a lot was prepared to actually keep the African, oppressed. So, what is the benefit of these oppressors oppressing Africa? Well, it's very quite obvious and clear. It's the fact that they stay rich, they stay superpowers, they stay wealthy, they stay in control. So, what is the benefit of Africans being oppressed? Nothing. So, what is important then is that we realize this and understand that now we should start having something out of who we are, because we should not focus on the continent, on the land, and all of those kind of things, but rather we should focus on ourselves as human beings. If you focus yourself as a human being, then everything else almost happens automatically, know? Because if I'm a human being and I've just eaten, I've had a meal, uh, I know that in reality that there will be a time where I will need to go to the toilet because I have to excrete the food that I've eaten, you know. So by just knowing that I'm a human being, I don't really need now to think about I need a toilet. It's something that actually happens naturally that I rent or I own a space that actually has a toilet because I would need to go to a toilet. So it doesn't really need to be complicated in any way that as an African you should understand that you're an African and you are from a land that has a lot of wealth and everything that you need as a human being. So there is no need for people to actually to be told that when you eat, you actually need to go to the toilet. I don't believe that people are that stupid. People are very much aware of their own nature. So what is important, I feel that for people to be made to recognize their own nature, you know, because focusing on politics and on political agendas, that is colonization. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a white person or a black person or a yellow person doing it. What's important is that someone is doing it, and so you should focus on your own nature, not on someone else's agenda. Because a political agenda is someone else's agenda about the people that do not have an agenda. So if we are a people and we have an agenda, then we will understand our position. So what is important is for us to actually first understand who we are individually, that we are human beings. We deserve dignity. We deserve advantage. We deserve privilege, just like everyone else. So the moment we recognize that we're human beings, that's the moment we should actually recognize ourselves as deserving of anything that we want, that will make us enjoy life. Because life is not about a struggle. Life is not about a luta continua. Life is about enjoying. The life is about happiness. Life is about smiling, about having fun. That's life. It becomes more fulfilling, and that's what we deserve. So everything else comes from that. Tradition, culture, and all of those kind of things. Those are things that are created to actually, uh, control. And control is not a bad thing. Control can be a good thing if you know that I can control myself and not eat too much, you know, or I can control myself and go to the toilet when I need to, excrete feces and all of that, or I have to, pee or urinate. I need to go to the toilet there for that, and that is control. So control can be very much a good thing if you know what it is you have to control. But what is bad is when you are being controlled as a human being, because as a human being, you came here by yourself. So you should actually enjoy yourself, you know. So there's no need to be anything else that you don't want to be. But now, this is the type of control that I believe is not real. That when we are always propagated with everything that we're not. For instance, the type of news we hear, with the type of movies we watch, the type of music we listen to, the type of advices we encounter, So what is important is that we should be at a position where we understand who we are individually. So individually, if you understand yourself, then it means that you know what is deserving of you, and no one else can tell you that except for yourself. So when you read everything that your neighbor is reading and the whole world is reading, then the whole world will understand the same perception in the same way, and therefore there can never be anything beyond that. But if you read your own and you seek for your own, whatever you like yourself, what you love for yourself, then there's no one else to tell you how to see life, how to perceive life, but yourself. So in that way, you are able to actually be who you are. You are able not to be oppressed. You are able to be active. So going back to being African and being from Africa, what is important is the fact that you don't take it as a political perception, but you take it as a natural one. That I come from a place that actually has a lot of things that I can enjoy about myself, you know. And it so happens that Africa is not an African thing, it's a foreign thing. So these are the kind of small things that you start to recognize about yourself. Like I mean, our continent should be called, you know, the Belle continent, the sun continent, because Langa is the sun, Langa Libalele is the bright sun, you know. So everywhere we go in the world, we are known as the sun people, we are sun kissed and everything because our skin actually exhibits that. So naturally, in reality, our continent is the sun continent. The pharaohs that we know were known as sun gods because they are from a continent that is of the vast sun. Not that the sun doesn't exist anywhere else, but it exists more profusely, more abundantly in Africa. Hence, we are called the sun people. So the continent should be Bele, Langa di Bale, because Bele is short for Libade. It's like you say vast, you know. It's Bele is short for Libale. It's almost like saying Nick, if you would call someone whose full name is Nicholas, and then you just call him your Nick, you know. So Bele is short for Libale. And the reason I say bad and I emphasize on Libanon is the fact that the sun shines all around the world. So, what makes Africa, our continent, to be the sun continent? It's because the sun, this is where the sun is most vast, where it's most bright, where it's most close to the earth. So, it's the place of the vast sun, the place of the elaborate sun, the place of enlightenment. Because when you understand the clan name Langa Libalele, which means the bright sun, it is referring to the fact that the people who come from an enlightened background are called the sun because they are enlightened. Literally, there's no deeper meaning. It means that there's light, and that's what the sun is responsible for the light. So you're called enlightened when you're a person of the sun, which is you are an African, because Africans, they are bad. That's what Africans are. They are the people of the sun. They are bad. So these are the kind of things that actually happen naturally now, where you actually feel the reality of it. That in fact we are sun kissed everywhere in the world. We're known as the people of the sun. And Bele, Lala Libalele, means the bright sun. This is a type of reality that a lot of people are not aware of. We've been celebrating the sun as African people for the longest time. And now you have to understand, for instance, if you know about the first ANC president, but then it was not the ANC, it was not the African National Congress. Back then it was the South African Native Congress or Council. So the founder was John Langa Libalele Dube. So Langa Libalele actually means an enlightened, the person of the sun, or yeah, the person of the sun, those who are from the sun, those who are sun kissed, the brown people, you know, the sun tanned people, you know. So Langa Libalele stands for that. And he was the founder. And more than anything else, you have also have to find that Langal Balele was not a political figure, he was an activist because he's the first African, he's the first Bele, Bele meaning African, sun kissed, of the sun, enlightened. So he's the first Bele to create a black industrial school in Africa, not South Africa, in Africa. He studied in the United States, and he's the first Bele. Remember, Bele means African. So he's the first Bele to receive an honorary doctorate from any South African university because he had founded the South African Native Congress or Council, and he was the first one to create a black industrial school. So an industrial school basically, especially in those times, meant that this person is very enlightened because that was the meaning of everything. That was the meaning of the oppression. People were oppressed because of industrialization, not because they were black or not because they were monkeys, not because they were kafirs or anything. The oppressors wanted to gain control of all the industries that have potential in Africa. So when they came here, they actually did that. So when you have now Ibele, like your John Badele who would come and actually create an industrial school focused on natives. It was specially built for natives because natives were, being hostile, they were being oppressed, and all of those kind of things. So these are the questions you should ask yourself. How then, being a native himself, was he able to create an industrial school? He did not create an industry, but he actually created an industrial school. So these are the questions that should actually give us the answers to knowing that to be active, you must actually know who you are. And that means intellectually, you must be aware of yourself.